All right, folks. Hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. Welcome to another edition of Webinar Wednesdays. Again, we try to run a couple webinars per month, and I kind of pick Wednesdays because Wednesday is a great way to break up the week, and it's 1 hour. We try to keep it fun and entertaining for you. So today, the topic is ControlUp and gaining control of your VDI environment. I have some awesome guests. I have the not only the privilege to work with these guys at one point, but these are some of the smartest guys that I know in the industry. So you have myself. My name is Pete Downing. I am the CMTO for XenTegra. Alongside of me, that I have Marcel. Marcel is the ControlUp guru in SE. Also in the past, he did a lot of work with Citrix. And he and I have a lot of good stories around demos behind the keynote stage. So if you're a longtime Citrix customer and you ever want to hear some good stories, you can corner us at a bar and we can tell you some of the good stories about some of those demos that you've seen at Synergy. And then finally on the phone, we got Barry Flanagan, who he and I have known each other a long time. Actually, he was a big fan of Ardent's back in the day and is director of sales over at ControlUp. So our goal today is simple. We want to show you guys what ControlUp is and how it works. So we have a packed hour, but before we jump in, just again, if you're interested in hearing about a lot of the other vendors we work with here at XenTegra, I am keeping this series running. I'm going to call it Webinar Wednesdays. My goal is simple. I just want to have 1 to 2 webinars a month with the vendors that I represent and give you guys insight into some of the motions that they're working on, the technology itself, and the goal is to do more demos than PowerPoint. So I try to keep these very technical and also kind of podcasty. So I do interrupt with questions. So I don't want to keep it I want to keep it fun and involved. All right, so today is going to be simple. We're going to do a quick introduction. I'm just going to jump in and do a couple polls. It's one of my favorite features of the GoToWebinar because I can get a level set on who's on the phone and what are you guys really interested in, and it helps us cater to you and give you some insight into some of the big issues you're hitting within your VDI environment. So then we'll go into a ControlUp overview, and we'll focus on how to gain control of your VDI. And then Marcel's going to do a nice end-to-end demo and show you all the goodness that is ControlUp. And I'm excited because there's a lot of cool stuff that it can do. And you guys are going to be pretty excited once you get to see this. And then finally, I'll do a quick recap on who is XenTegra, and I'll give you some insight into some of the things we're doing with ControlUp. And then we'll open the lines for final Q&A. So if you want to go bold and you want me to unmute you, I'll unmute you and you can ask your question live. So think of it like a radio show. All right. So that's the agenda for today. We're going to keep it simple and keep it fun. Just some quick housekeeping. Everybody is on mute. And we ask that, if you do have a question, there is the question and answer dialogue. So if you do have a question, feel free to ask it. I will be monitoring it throughout the hour. And where I can, I will interject the question so it's content relevant. So definitely feel free to ask a question. And again, at the end, if you want to ask your question live, just raise your hand. There is a hand raise function, or actually there's a you just send me a question. I can unmute you, and I can unmute and you can ask it live. So no worries on either front. But again, don't hesitate to ask questions today. We want to keep this as interactive as possible. All right, so some quick polls. Again, I like to do polls because it helps me and the team level set, what we're looking at, and it makes it a little fun too. It also makes it, makes you see who's paying attention. So the first thing I want to do is, how many times per week do you get a call around performance? So performance on VDI, network performance, the classic I hate Citrix call. So how many times a week on average do you get a call around performance? And we're, again, just interested to see where the pain is, right? And I'll let this sit for about 5 more seconds. I'd like to get at least 80% participation. So, let's try to get the poll up. Don't make me start doing Jeopardy music. A couple more seconds, a couple more votes. Come on, we'll get it to 80%. We're at 73%. All right, we're almost there. 3, 2, 1, and we'll share this. So, all right, so a good chunk of you get about 1 to 5 times a week. There's a good a good portion that get 5 to 10, and then there's some on the higher end. So, again, the goal here is we're going to show you how to troubleshoot these issues, and that's really what ControlUp is good at, is helping you find the issue, troubleshoot it, and then hopefully solve it. So that's one thing we're going to focus on today. All right, so the next poll is what data would you like to understand better? And I know this is kind of broad, but again, it helps us understand where your interest is. And if, I locked it to one, so pick your favorite one. So is it application data? Is it hypervisor data? Is it virtual machine data, network data? Just pick your favorite one. And it's really just to understand what's your highest priority today in your VDI environment. So we'll give this about a couple seconds. And about 3 more seconds, 2, 1, and going once, going twice, and let's share it. So a good chunky you want to hear about application and virtual machine. And luckily, Marcel's going to show you how easy it is to plug it into your VDI environment, and how easy it is to get some insights into, what's going on the virtual machine, what applications are running, log on time, etc. So you're going to see some of that today. All right, so my final poll is log-on times. We all hate log-on times. We get those questions around log-on times. Is log-on times are an issue within my environment? Again, don't be afraid to say yes. We're not going to judge. And I'm going to guess those who are saying no, it is an issue, but no one's called you yet. But nothing is worse than getting that phone call, oh, my log-on's taking forever, or the classic joke, hey, I log into my machine, go get my coffee, and I come back. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So I'll give about 3 more seconds. And going once, going twice. So a good chunky. A log-on time is an issue. And, Barry's going to talk about this a little bit, and Marcel will show this. You'll be surprised. People think log-on time is associated with the profile, but group policies tend to be the culprit here. So Barry's going to cover that a little bit today. And then Marcel will show you how to troubleshoot that. And then we'll show you another cool tool where you can see how you compare against some of your peers in the industry. All right, so those are the polls. Again, thank you for participating. Again, those help us cater the content a little bit and really make sure we cover. So, again, we don't want to frustrate our users, right? A little story here. I worked for Citrix for about 10 years, and I used to wear my logo shirt when I go to my doctor. And it got to the point where I didn't wear my logo shirt because every time I walked in, it was like, oh, you work for Citrix? Oh, I hate Citrix. And 9 times out of 10, and again, it's not a knock on Citrix, but 9 times out of 10, it wasn't a Citrix issue. It was either the latency or the network or performance on the virtual machine. So, but they didn't have the tools to understand that. But from a user perspective, they see Citrix, so therefore they think it's Citrix's fault. So hopefully ControlUp can help you change that perception and get in front of these issues. So again, we're going to talk about how to gain control of your VDI environment. And to start, we're going to kick it over to Barry Flanagan, who's going to talk through a little bit about what is ControlUp, who they are, and give you some food for thought on what they do. So Barry, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate that opening, and thanks for doing this poll. It's very insightful. So hopefully you can see my screen now, Pete.
Yep, we can see your screen.
See the slide. All right, so I'm going to talk about ControlUp. Just a few moments on slides, not too much. No PowerPoint overload here. Just to give you kind of set the table for Marcel, and we'll spend the great majority of the time on the demo. I'd like to start off with just a few points about that our customers learn when leveraging ControlUp. So, having a bit of trouble on my slide. All right, there it is. So we got some insights, and I think these insights actually line up very well with the questions that you asked at the beginning there, Pete. So, there was a lot of interest in virtual machine performance. One of the things that we find in looking at data of our customers is that oftentimes virtual desktops are over-provisioned. Some are under-provisioned, and so when you find that when they're not right size, you can lead to performance issues, and some that could leverage resources that are being unused in others. So we did a study of about 77,000 virtual desktops in our customer environments. What we found, 88% of those virtual desktops were over-provisioned on virtual CPU, and 47% were over-provisioned on memory. So that's a big problem. We found on the server side, we studied 71,000 server workloads. For instance, we actually found 7% of the server VMs that we studied were over for provision on memory, to the tune of those 943 environments that we looked at. Those customers were wasting collectively about $31 million on that over provision memory. And I'm not suggesting they should just rip that memory out, but it could be reallocated to other places to get better performance. And that's something that you can learn from using a tool like ControlUp. Another thing you talked about 65% of you said that login times are a problem. We found in our customer environments, and you can see this, Marcel will show you this in the demo today, published application logons are typically 50% shorter in duration than full published desktop logons. So you can really shorten logon times just by using that. And you may think, well, of course it's shorter, but I don't think many people realize how much shorter it actually is. And then another thing that we find in looking at the benchmarks available in our Insights tool is that looking at the profile typically takes 11% of the total logon duration, while group policy load time takes 26% of overall logon duration. So that's something, you hear from customers a lot. They have problems with logon duration. The assumption that I hear quite often is that it's something to do with the profile, loading the profile, but we find that oftentimes it's not actually the profile, though it can be the profile. Group policy can be it many times, and the challenge there is figure out which group policy is the problem. I've seen customer with 50 to 100 group policies that are loading at a time. Determining which one that is the actual problem can be very important, and Marcel will show you how we can do that. So we'll go on to the next slide here. So just a little bit about ControlUp. We are now one of 5 Citrix-ready global alliance partners in the world. ControlUp was actually started by some Citrix consultants. They wanted a tool to help them troubleshoot and improve the performance of their Citrix install. So that's really where we came from. And customers are recognizing that. In the last 2 years, ControlUp has won a Best Synergy Award both in 2017 and 2018. And some of you may have not heard of ControlUp, but we are growing very, very rapidly. We have quite a few people on our sales team here in the US now, and we've gained well over 1,000 customers across multiple industries. We tend to do best in the industries where Citrix does the best, and those are the ones that you see on the screen. We've done it very, very well with Citrix customers. We have some extremely large Citrix customers across all the large industries that where Citrix does well. So I just want to spend a couple minutes explaining about how ControlUp is different from other tools you may think of when you think of monitoring tools. So generally, when you think of monitoring tools, there's 2 types that you're looking at. There's pure monitoring tools, and then there's analytics tools that just kind of do data gathering. When you look at monitoring tools, most monitoring tools are collecting an enormous amount of data across a lot of different pieces of infrastructure in your environment. And they're giving you a ton of that data. But what you don't normally get is a lot of insight into what that data means. What does it mean for what's happening right now? And the other thing that, because monitoring tools tend to collect so much data across so many different pieces of infrastructure, is they don't do it very frequently. So even in the EUC space, some of the other monitoring tools that are common in Citrix environments, they're only collecting data between 1 minute and 5 minutes. Every 1 minute to every 5 minutes, they're collecting that data. So that can be useful, but the challenge with only collecting data, every few minutes is that you're going to tend to miss the peaks and valleys that are common in infrastructure metrics. So I'm sure if you've ever watched Task Manager running on your local system or perfmon running on your XenApp or XenDesktop servers, you can see there's a lot of peaks and valleys, and the values change very rapidly over time, especially in a XenApp and XenDesktop environment where you have hundreds or thousands of users, running many, many apps at the same time and doing many different things that can have huge impact on performance from second to second. So those monitoring tools do a very good job that are available today of giving you historical data, so you can go make decisions about projects you want to do in the future. You do trend analysis. There's a lot of that, but there's not so much what we call real-time monitoring available. And the reason I think real-time monitoring is very important is because a lot of you are focused on what's happening right now. Is there a problem? And if there is a problem, what is the specific problem? What's the root cause of that problem? And more importantly, how can I fix it? How can I resolve that problem? And that's really where ControlUp is focused. We're much more focused on helping you find out what's happening right now. A lot of tools will tell you what has happened in the past. ControlUp is about what's happening right now and how can I fix it. That's really the focus of this. So ControlUp is much more than monitoring, in my opinion. We're a troubleshooting and fix tool that leverages real-time monitoring. And there's three things I'd like to focus on of what we're doing. First, we're tracking a wide variety of infrastructure metrics in real time. And by real time, we mean every 3 seconds. We're taking data collection every 3 seconds. That is configurable, but that's the default, every 3 seconds. So you can capture those peaks and valleys. And we're not waiting every 1 minute, every 5 minutes. There's some tools that we've seen, their local agent collects data every 15 seconds, every 20 seconds, but they hold it until 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then they send an average. We're not sending averages. We're not sending only peaks. We're sending actual values every 3 seconds. And then we help you troubleshoot issues as they arise. We have a feature that Marcel was showing the demo called the ControlUp Virtual Expert. It helps guide you. It does assisted troubleshooting. There's really 3 parts in my view of the virtual expert. It's aggregated metrics with our stress level and our computer scores, the assisted troubleshooting, how it guides you through and focuses on the metrics that matter for the problem that you're looking at, and then finally data mining and trending analysis with the sizing recommendations and the environment assessment reports. So Marcel will show you that. And then finally, triage. We're going to help you triage and fix those problems that you find in your Citrix and VMware environments, Microsoft Nutanix. Will help you fix many of those problems right from the ControlUp console. So that's what I wanted to cover today. I really want to jump right in with Marcel. We're going to flip it over. Pete, if you could flip the screen over to Marcel. Marcel is an SE for us, worked for Citrix for quite a while, has a lot of insight and really knows how to dig deep down into helping you troubleshoot the problems that you find in your Citrix, VDI, and EUC environments. So with that, take it away, Marcel.
Thank you, Barry. So you are seeing right now our architectural slide. This is the only part that's not going to be live. I just wanted to show you. I'll highlight everything about. We'll work on the ControlUp real-time console. It's running an in-RAM database, collecting all the data from the different sources. As Barry mentioned, all the hypervisors, XenTegra, VMware, Nutanix, Hyper-V. We use their API to capture data from them. We can connect already to the different cloud providers in cloud Citrix brokers to get data from that. Also to the NetScaler using their API. And then we use a lightweight agent that can be deployed on the VMs running on those hypervisors, on instances on any cloud, or even on physical servers. And through that, we'll collect all that data, display it on the ControlUp console in real time. And then a background process, which is the only infrastructure component that you need for our hybrid cloud deployment. This monitor is a Windows service that will capture data in RAM, trigger any alerts that needed to be triggered, and then also move the data to the insights component for historical analysis. Jumping into the console, the first thing I want to highlight is we're looking here at our computer's view. You can see how the data is flowing in real time. You can get an idea of what are the metrics that are affecting your system. You can see on the left on the configuration tree the different hypervisors that we're connected to. We're also connected to our Citrix site, the brokers, the NetScalers, and infrastructure and VDI and server-based computing resources. The first thing I want to demo here is if we are having performance issues, you usually want to start looking at the top of the stack. So what are your hypervisor hosts feeling? And I'll use the ControlUp stress level, which is going to group all the different issues that are affecting a specific resource. In this case, the data store IOPS seems to be the one thing of main concern on my VM host 1. So I'll select that box and notice how our virtual expert will immediately suggest a path to find the root cause for that issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow it step by step. And the virtual expert will, let's start, select the computers or VMs. It will grab that VM host 1 and put it as my parent record. Leave me some reminders here of what I'm looking at, and it created a customized view of those VMs running within that hypervisor, and it immediately sorted it by the most likely column that it's going to help me pinpoint the issue. And you can see here that Tools VM 2012 seems to be the culprit. I'll click on the virtual disk IOPS, and he's gonna show me that it has exceeded the set threshold, and I could drill down into the user sessions in that machine. Again, it creates a view, even brought in the relevant metric, the IO operations to the front, so I can identify which users out of those logged into that machines is the most likely that's causing the issue, and drill down to the processes. Now, once I've identified the process, I can take action directly. So as Barry mentioned, it's not just to track the issue, find it, but also being able to react. So I can, first of all, take a screenshot of what's happening there, and you could do it with user approval, user notification, or without. And our security policy will enable you to define what is allowed and what is not allowed. And you can define different roles and who's going to be allowed to do that. And then if need be, you could take action and kill that process. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. What you're going to notice is we're going to get a last snapshot of the process, which will enable us to even capture the exit code of that application. And with that, you can see already at the user session how it's already dwindling down. Same thing over here for the IO and all the way up to the host. So in a couple of seconds, with a couple of clicks, I basically followed the red and was able to understand where the issue was and solve it. Now I'm going to jump into and I do see some questions flowing in. I am going to defer to Barry and Pete and the other people on the staff. If there's anything that has relevance and it wants to be brought up directly, then I'll gladly answer. I'll continue
so Marcel, this actually plays into a little bit of your architectural side, and I don't want to get too far away from that. Is it recommended to have 2 monitor servers? So good question.
Oh. Yeah, so you definitely can have 2 monitor servers. It will do the load balancing for you. So you just need to define two monitors. I do recommend make sure that they're not running on the same hypervisor or on the same storage. Try to put them separate so that you have 2 machines. One will be connected and online. The second one will be on standby mode. It will be collecting data. So even if a failure happens on the primary, the non-primary is still collecting that data and will have it available. The load balancing is managed by our backend. So yep, that is about the monitor. So definitely have to. You can define more, but I don't think that's relevant. Okay, let's go into the application and VM performance. So at the end of the day, for VDI, what counts is what are your user sessions feeling. So I'll do the same exercise I did for the hypervisor host. I'll sort by stress level and try to figure out what are the things that are happening. So that user we killed this process apparently is back at it. I'm going to let somebody else deal with that issue right now, and let's keep on looking what else is happening. So I do have a couple of users here that are having high stress. You can already see the logon duration peaking here, but I wanted to say that our stress level will aggregate all metrics, whether in view or not. So you'll be able to quickly identify that this issue is having logon duration. We're also gathering the logon duration from the XenDesktop side. So that was also triggered. So not only the ControlUp measured logon duration, but also the XenDesktop measured logon duration. And our logon duration even broke it down and identified group policy load time. So that was for this Jim Slow user. Let me just check Frank over here. That is the next one on the list. And he changed on me, but yep, he seems to be having the same issue. So let's sort by logon duration so that we can have the data not jumping so fast. And let's look at those logon duration issues. The first 3, they all seem to be affected by a group policy load time. Now I'm going to grab those 3 sessions and note these are the 3 that we've already identified that they are the ones that are most affected by group policy load time, and use our script-based actions to further drill down into which GPO is causing that. So very simply select all of them, go to our script-based action submenu and run that script. Now the scripts will pass the necessary information to the machines so that we could get the drill down on what are the policies for that user session. And I can see here team drive mapping took 38 seconds to load on that first session I'm analyzing. If I check the second one, same policy, and it is, by the way, that we're highlighting which portion of the policy, the client-side extensions. This third user seems to be a different policy, so I'll have to talk to our system, our backend, about these two policies that are affecting our users. But I get an idea of what is the major impact, so I can tell them exactly what to look and where are we going to get the most benefit in a quick time. Now, the other thing Barry mentioned was the desktop load time. So you could see here the desktop load time. It will not appear when users launched applications. So all of these additional time loading the desktop, it will only be penalized for the session when there's a full desktop. And I think Barry, the application, the data we got is that it was 50% faster when you load publish applications on desktops. So that's what I have for the logon duration. So there's other scripts that will help you drill down into other issues. For example, if there are scheduled tasks during logon that could be taking time, all of that will be you can drill and get further details through our console. Now, I want to look into all the latency and bandwidth, which is the same, another source of pain for Citrix users. So let's look at the latency average, and this latency is actually a measure captured by Citrix. We're just picking it up from the VDI machine and bringing it in. We also are able to bring in the client IP, what is the IP address of that client, the version of the receiver, all from within the VDI. So we're grabbing information on the VDI and bringing it into you on the console without having to have anything on the client, on the thin client or device that the user is using. And it is really nice because it gives you a perspective of which user is having latency. So let's look at this user here that's getting flagged. He's on one of our branches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that branch, the branch column, and I'm going to use it to filter, to group my results. So I'm grouping now by branches, and I can see this FL1080 branch is what I'm grouping by. And I can see that they're definitely not within the data center, so about 80 to 90 milliseconds each, but this user has something additional to it. So I know that the issue Miguel is experiencing is about 90 milliseconds because of where he is, but another 330 milliseconds because of something specific to his device. So a lot of information in the console that I can use to understand and group data and look at it within context. So not just looking at a session and saying, well, he has latency and I don't know where it comes from, but I can see here he has latency. It is not the branch, or 90 milliseconds of it is because of where he's located. The rest is something on his device. Okay, I want to jump now into looking at some very Citrix specific things that we have. I'll double click on our Citrix side and it will automatically switch to Citrix specific views. So notice over here, I'm looking at computers and it changed to a preset display that it's going to show me Citrix VDA information. And what I can see here is I can detect that I have an unregistered machine. I can also see that that machine is powered on, maintenance is off. So definitely this is a machine, one of those cases where you definitely want to get a hold into what's happening. You know, if the machine was on maintenance mode like down here and it was unregistered, I wouldn't be so concerned. But this case, okay, maintenance off, powered on, unregistered is one that definitely needs attention. So just wanted to show you how easy it is to look into those things, and I could group information like we did before. Okay, and understand that from the unregistered, this is the only one unregistered, or every other machine is registered. But not only can you do that, but you can also generate an alert. So let's see the alert that I already generated for this. So on our triggers, I already configured a trigger that will alert me when let me just move this so that we have the context. When a VDA is not registered, but also is powered on and not in maintenance mode. So let me show you how we did that one. And this is using a ControlUp 7.2 improvement, which enables us to look at text fields and say, if the machine is unregistered, exactly what we wanted, unregistered, if maintenance mode is off, the machine is powered on, then I want to get an alert. I did here a trick, which is I'm going to say, if the computer time is anything, okay, and that one will always be valid, that will cause that data point to be added to my alert trigger. So I'll be able to look if the computer local time had drifted off and Kerberos was failing. That's one of the major reasons for VDA registration failure.
So Marcel, good question. Since we're on the topic of VDI, so Kevin asks, what's the requirements for the CU agent to run on Xen Desktop VDI? We're unable to get it to run on our VDI. So Kevin, good question, and we can obviously answer the first, and then for the former, we could potentially help you get it running. So.
Yep. So the requirements are really, really simple. Basically, we need .NET 3.5 or .NET 4.5. And here's the thing: if you manage to install the VDA, both of them are installed because the VDA requires both. So as far as the VDA, you shouldn't have any problem loading the agent. What you could find is issues with the firewall not allowing you to auto deploy from the console. And that's one thing you can fix by enabling RPC and WMI on your on that machine, or turning off the firewall. We also use port 40705. Let me go to my slide. We use port 40705 for that connection. And you need to enable that incoming into where the agent is running. So incoming 40705 TCP. If you cannot allow the RPC and WMI for security reasons, what you could do is we do have an MSI for the agent, which you can run directly on that machine. And that MSI will even open a firewall exception for port 40705. So again, there's literally it has all the prereqs. I would steer away from XP and Server 2000. Other than that, I know that we run on any machine. Okay, while we're on the topic of what we do specific with Citrix, I wanted to also highlight that if I go into my applications, we'll pull from the Citrix site the application list, everything from is the application enabled or disabled? Are there any users currently logged in? What was the average duration, login duration for those users log into that application? Latency, bandwidth, CPU. And what we're doing here is we're taking the published application data from the Citrix site, the resource utilization and login duration from the data we have on the machines where it's running, and aggregating it here so that you get it per application. We're also adding here columns so that you can know how much of what you've provisioned is currently available. So in this case, most of our applications were provisioned or published on 5 servers, and only 4 of them are available. So I can see an 80% available to publish ratio. And then the running to available will show me out of what's available, how many of those are actually serving customers, and out of those that are running, how many of those are serving customers. So a lot of information here, and also the ability, for example, if I needed to commission again this Paint application, I could do that directly from here. I'll jump now into another Citrix specific item, which is, yes, please. Yes, Barry.
Kevin had a follow-up question about the overhead on the monitor server to know if they can add it as a role to an existing server. Can you cover that?
Yep. So the overhead of the agent, it is extremely small. What I'm going to do is I focused on the machines where we're running it. I'll go. Is that what we wanted? The agent overhead?
The monitor server.
Oh. Sorry, yeah. So the agent is extremely small. The monitor can be added to other in machines with other services. It does require some memory, so we do recommend that especially if you're in larger environments, keep tabs on the memory. But in any, do keep tabs on the memory. So if we look at our monitor machine, for example, it is using 30-60%. If I double just stop it from jumping. If I look at how much is our monitor process consuming, you're going to see that we do have, and this is a small lab environment, at about 1 gig of RAM is already being used by that monitor. So most important thing is keep tabs on how much RAM you have available. And what I usually do when we do a POC is I always go straight to Task Manager on the machine, look at how much RAM is available. I would say if you don't have about 3 to 4 gigs of RAM available, that's not the machine you want to run it. Okay. Not to say we're going to use that much, but you definitely don't want to jump into a machine that it's already starved out of RAM. So for the monitor service, the most important metric is to make sure that there's RAM available. As you go into production, I would recommend following our sizing guidelines, which are available on the web.
And I think they're going to get into this, but to tee you up, do you need to enable app flow with NetScaler? If not, how does it retrieve the data? And obviously integration with NetScaler MOS. So put that in the back of your mind as you're going through your demo today, Marcel.
Okay, so I'll go into NetScaler and into our NetScaler part. First of all, we're using the Nitro API. You don't need to enable anything for it. It also works with any NetScaler licensing. We don't have any specific Citrix license requirement. We're able to monitor the CPU usage, the status of the load balancers and gateways, how much traffic is going through it, how many connections on your Citrix HDX session proxy, load balancer, SSL users. And one that I personally like is this days with unsafe configuration. It should never be anything bigger than 0 unless you know you're testing something that you don't want to save. So we're keeping tabs on, did you save the configuration that you're currently running? And you don't want this to be anything higher than 0 unless you're testing something that should not persist. We also have data of who's the primary and secondary when you're running on HA state. When was the last time it was configured, the version of the device, when did it start, and as you drill into it, you could see the HDX sessions running on it, the gateways and the status on them, and you could see a lot of the metadata of how it is configured, which makes it really easy to analyze. For example, if you have multiple gateways and one of them is failing, you can see the policies, the LDAP that you're using, and understand what could be different for that. And by the way, same with the configuration, we also get you how many days do you still have on your SSL certificate attached to that gateway or that resource. I'll go into load balancers, and here we can see our intranet site, for example, has extremely high usage, and I can see that it's only 80% available. So I'll drill down into our intranet site load balancer, and what I can see here is that one of my servers is down and not participating on that load balancing. So that's my IIS4. And I definitely want to take a look into that. So what I'll do now is I'll drill into that section and I'll go look at my web servers and I'll try to understand what is happening on IIS4. So I'll focus on that, switch to computers view. And if I look at my IIS4, it doesn't seem to have any alerts. It does have some paging file, but I think these other servers also have it. So it's not something visible here. Let's take a look at the services. Maybe it's just not enabled to participate in the load balancer. So I can go here to my managed services, and this is going to take us into the controllers pane, where I'll see all the different services or registry and file system on the machines I selected. And I can understand if the services, for example, are the same. There's a legend here that will show you if the servers exist only on one machine, on some of the machines, or if it exists on all of them, but the properties differ. So looking at the worldwide publishing service that I had already scrolled down here, I can see that it does have a warning. And by selecting it, I'll see that my IIS4 is actually disabled for that service and stopped. Now, again, from here, you can right click, go to the edit services, set it to automatic or manual. I'll make it match the other servers. Run that, it'll change the startup type. And now I can even start it from here. And thus, I was able to discover an issue and solved it directly from here. The other thing that we found is that these servers, their server core, they seem to get really filled up in their log location. So I'll go to the file system browser and I can go here to all of them simultaneously, go into my inet pub, logs, log files, find those log files and delete them. I know that there's no need, it's a completely internal site. And I've been able to maintain those servers within their, with a small drive size. So again, in the controllers portion of the real-time console, you can take action directly on services, registry, or file system. Now, I want to jump into the ControlUp Insights. So from the console, I have the option over here to click on ControlUp Insights, and it will take me to the ControlUp Insights console. In here, I'm able to look at some of the historical and other data. I'll let the environment assessment, oh, there it is, loaded. Let's start with Top Insights. So Top Insights is the section of our insights where our virtual expert is looking at what happened yesterday and putting it on a grid, on a dashboard, so I can understand what, if I missed something or if I didn't see something. So I can see, for example, how much CPU did we use yesterday on my hypervisors. So 34% CPU utilization. You know, if you're a manager, you'll probably be already screaming, you know, you are wasting 66% of the CPU. But here's the thing, the week over week change is not high, so we'll highlight that. So we just had a 3% week over week change, but we did have we are at 204% of what we see out there in the community. So 34%, as low as it might seem on your CPU utilization for hypervisors, it is 204% higher than the 11% we see out there. So one of the things we try to do in the insights is not only give you a data point, but put perspective into it. IOPS, for example, we're actually below what we see out there. Memory at 57%, we're above, and this is the same, some of the same data that Barry mentioned, that there is a lot of CPU and RAM allocated and not being used. We'll do the same thing for your computers, and we'll also give you that for user metrics. For example, average logon duration, we're at 10 seconds. I guess everybody in the call would want to have their average logon duration of 10 seconds. And we could see here, we're actually 63% lower than the global benchmark that we have at 27 seconds. And I can click on any of those graphs, drill into this, and get the detail of the logon duration. How did it behave yesterday? Or I could go back a week and look at what was my logon duration over a week. Has there been any fluctuations? Has there been any number of logons? What the profile load time, as you can see, is very small, and the group policy load time where we're usually affected the most. And for example, here I can click and drill into what are the sessions that were affected and get the detail here, sort by logon duration, and get that data, be able to understand who are the users that are most in pain. Now let's go back to the ControlUp Insights dashboard, and let me show you how I can troubleshoot a issue, just like we did in real time. If I had a report that yesterday there were some issues with IOPS, I could drill down into the hypervisor host and let the ControlUp Insights interface guide me through a drill down and find what were the things running yesterday that could have caused that spike in IO. So the number of VMs was steady, CPU steady, memory steady. Oh, here's the IO. It suddenly jumped at about 8 a.m. So I can click on any of these data points and drill into which VM. Okay, out of the ones, there's one that was definitely higher than others. Drill into that VM, and now I'll be able to drill into which user and process we're running at that point in time. I can already see the CPU and the CPU spiking at about 8 a.m. and I can also see it here. Let me select one of the data points, and it'll give me the username and processes that we're running, and I'll get the top 5. So I'll be able to understand what were those processes, and is there something that I can pinpoint. Now from here, I could drill into that user session or the process itself. Okay, and get the details for that. Is there a question?
Yeah, just because it's topic related. So Kevin asked, he doesn't see Top Insights in his current 7X version. Does he need to upgrade? Kind of what's the licensing model to get some of this data?
Got it.
It's great data.
Yep. So a lot of the virtual expert modules are available on our hybrid cloud deployment model, where the insights is run on our secure cloud. If he's not seeing the top insights, he might be running an on-premises deployment mode where the insights is run within his environment. And we are working to get some of these virtual expert reports already into our on-premises customers as well.
Awesome. All right. And Kevin, you know, we can work with you to figure out, you know, how you get these functionalities. So, and then Kenneth asked a question: does this offer a self-healing capability?
So that's a big question. We've had a lot of discussion about it. You know, how much do we want to allow this to take action? You know, reboot machines or take machines that are your load balancing if they're failing. You know, we're working through it. It is a function that is going to come in one of our future versions. What we're doing is we keep extending. How much are we giving you? How closer are we getting you to that resolution? To actually give you a button to kill is something that it's on the works. It's coming, but it's not available as of today.
So Marcel, what I would add is, you know, we have said publicly that we're going to do automated actions. We're working on that for the first half of next year. The challenge for us is we need to first implement some auditing of those automated actions, because obviously you want to make sure if someone set up an automated action and it wasn't the right one, you want to know what happened, when, how it got executed. So that's where we want to implement auditing of those actions before we implement the automation of them. So that's coming. We expect that in the first half of next year.
Thank you, Barry. I hope that answered the question regarding the automation. So the self-healing is a bigger part of the component. I just want to highlight this other two reports. The environment assessment is basically showing us a whole month of data for the hypervisors, computer sessions, bringing in a analysis of the usage, whether it's extra heavy users, medium, so sorting your users and your computers by the amount of usage, and lots more. And then the sizing recommendation, which ties to what Barry mentioned at the beginning. We are seeing everywhere, and this was not planned. It just happened to be. And even on our lab, we are massively over provisioned, both in CPU and RAM. And let's focus on the VDI components over here. Even on those VDI components, we're going to see a massive over provisioning. And I can go over here, sort by RAM recommendation, for example, and understand on one of my PVS servers, you know, we are, as much as we're using it, we're using about 2 to 3 gigabytes of RAM. So the recommendation we're giving is to remove half of what it has. And CPU also, we gave it 4, and it actually says you could cut it down to 1. Again, we'll give you also the data here, the detail, and allow you to take the decisions on how do you want to proceed. So with that, I think I've covered a lot of the things. There's still more on both on the real-time console and insights, but I want to be respectful of time and also give the opportunity to open it for questions.
Cool. So there is one other question that came up. So Chuck asked a good question. How big do your profiles get, and how do you monitor or clean the profiles? So I'm guessing he's talking about the data capture.
The data we capture?
Yeah, so I guess, Chuck, is that what you're talking about as far as profiles? Is how much data are they storing?
So user profiles, by the way, you could monitor. So is it user profiles? User profiles, we do have a script.
Can you clean the profile? So are you talking about user profiles, Chuck? Yeah, so yes, he's talking about user profiles.
Okay, so again, we are not automated. That would be part of what could be brought in with the automated actions. We do have scripts that will calculate the user profile size. So that is here, and you could automate it that when things are happening, you know, if this then that. Today, what you could do is already load one of these calculate user profile size from the script-based action library.
Cool. And then a question came in from Eric. With the real-time monitoring, what is the bandwidth hit on the network? So do you have any kind of data snippets off the top of your head, Marcel, on
It's
how much
about 1 kbps per user session that you're monitoring. So it's about 1 kbps into the monitor. So the only place where you'll see a bandwidth hit kind of is on the monitor themselves. The machines are just sending their own data, and then the monitor does the aggregation to the cloud, and that's also very minimal. So just the incoming data to the monitor is where you're going to see about 1 kbps per user session.
Cool. All right, so keep the questions coming. I'm going to jump over to my screen really quick and just do a quick high-level overview on who is XenTegra, and why do we do these cool events. So this is Andy, our founder, Andy Whiteside, and Andy, like me, spent some time at Citrix. He was a sales engineer, and when he was working with partners as a sales engineer, he got frustrated, and he said, you know what, I want to form a partner that's different, that focuses on customer enablement and works with the partners, and it's a true partnership. And we don't have a lot of time, but I have a nice little series of slides that kind of covers what is a partnership, what is value, etc. But end of the day is we do focus a lot on events and education of our customer base and our prospects. So if you go to XenTegra.com/events, you can see some of the events we do, and we do all-day workshops on Citrix products. We do webinars. We do half-day workshops, and you're going to see this grow over the next year. And I have the fortunate part of my job is I own a lot of this now, and I've kind of taken it over from Andy and continue to carry this flag. So I'm excited to help grow this segment of our business. So next webinar, actually, and then the date's wrong. It's 10/26 or 10/24. And it's going to be with IGIL. So we're gonna talk about how to focus on Windows 10, and there's still a theme around gaining control of your VDI environment. So it's going to be more around the endpoint connecting into your VDI environment, and then talking about Windows 10. I think it came out today. I got to check the news, but officially the new version of Windows 10 is out today. What that means from a management perspective and what the impact is, on you, the administrator who's dealing with this. So we're going to focus a lot on that, not necessarily devices, because at the end of the day, IGIL doesn't like to be called a device company. They're they're more of an OS company now. So again, XenTegra is a partner. So this is my definition of XenTegra. We are a reseller who invests in their partnerships and customers, right? And we do this through our training and services. So this is something that we stand by, and if you have been working with XenTegra over the last few years, you'll know that we do a lot of events and a lot of educational focused activities. So what is XenTegra? We're resellers, we're a consultant, and we're advisor. And the cool thing is, we can resell you ControlUp, Citrix, so some of the other partners I'll show you in a minute. We can act as a consultant and implement these services for you. And then also we can act as an advisor. So you can call me up and say, hey, Pete, what do you think of this? Or hey, Pete, what do you think of that? Now, my favorite part of the job is, one, I can build you a solution stack that makes sense for your environment, but also I can give it to you on a single PO, and I can give you one place to have to send your money, which is kind of nice. So one vendor with multiple solutions. So these are the vendors we work with, and you can see, top to bottom, like Citrix is really where we put our focus, and you can see that Citrix is our bread and butter, and all the technologies that are in our stack. The goal here is to help with your Citrix environments. Can we do stuff standalone? Yes, we can. We're not going to, if you come to me and say, hey, I'm using Avanti Endpoint Protection Manager, we can help you get that up and running, even if you're not using Citrix. But at the end of the day, our goal is to enable and enhance your Citrix environment. And these are the vendors who we work with hand in hand, and we continue to add more vendors. And you can see ControlUp is a great partner of ours, and we continue to do a lot more with ControlUp. And you can see, here's our focus area. So, this is a new slide. I'm still kind of playing with the versioning, and we have four core buckets: end user computing, networking, cloud, and security. So, really our bread and butter of our business is end user computing, and that's where we got our start. But, as part of end user computing, networking is a big piece. So we focus a lot on NetScaler, SD-WAN, VPN technologies, and also basic Cisco as well. So we have a great Cisco practice and a couple Cisco guys. Parallel, we do a lot of cloud. So we do Citrix Cloud. We have our own managed service program around Citrix Cloud and Microsoft Azure, Office 365, SaaS. So we do offer a wide array of services around cloud and enabling you in cloud technologies. And finally, security. That's the new hot topic. We're continuously building out our security portfolio and going to start doing a lot more around security. And then if you go here, we can offer a wide array of services, whether it's on-prem all the way over here to managed services. So we do have a MSP arm of the business. And then finally, down here, if you want, you can bring us in. We can do fixed projects. You can do time and material, so you can use us as pay as you go. And then finally, you can say, hey, I need a virtual resource or a support resource once a week or twice a week throughout the year. We can offer that as well. And then we do also offer support across the whole stack. So this is kind of, a little kind of diagram. I like to call it the architectural view of XenTegra and what we do and where we specialize. But really the goal here is education. We do a lot of education. So again, I harp on that, go to our events page and really, take a look at some of the upcoming events. I got some cloud workshops coming up, some NetScaler workshops, etc. And that brings me to my final piece here, which is free micro assessments. We do a lot of what we call free micro assessments, AKA health checks. Now, the great thing about this is ControlUp is an integral piece of this. So if you do a health check with us, we will also help you set up ControlUp in your environment. So what's great about this is not only are you going to get one of our SEs or consultants to come in and give you 4 hours of their time to give you, to dig into your Citrix environment and give you some food for thought, you're also going to get ControlUp set up and get some data to back up some of those snippets of information we're going to give you. So again, if you're interested in, getting a little level set on, hey, how's my Citrix environment doing? But then also getting ControlUp set up alongside of that, you definitely want to reach out to myself and or Barry and or Marcel, and we can work with you guys to make this happen. So again, some calls to action. If you need a demo, let us know. I know Marcel, he did a great job today, but not a lot of time. ControlUp does a lot more, and we can also tailor the demo to hit some use cases that you might have in your environment. If you're doing a POC, again, call us up. We can do the health check, and part of that will get ControlUp set up. Depending on the environment, it's less than an hour setup. And it depends on if you want to do cloud or on-prem, but we typically go with the cloud version, and it's less than an hour to get set up, and we're up and running, and you're capturing data. If you want to purchase ControlUp, let us know. And then finally, if you have a renewal, definitely let us know. And what we do with our renewals is we typically give the customer a rebate so they can invest it in education, getting the synergy, things like that. So those are some of the calls to action. And there is a few questions that came up, and I want to check the Q&A. Let me just double check really quick before we call it up. There's no more questions, but again, if you have any questions, let us know. And just for the sake of putting it up here again, here is all our contact information. So you got myself, Pete, you had Marcel, who did the great demo, and you have Barry's information here. So if you have any questions at all after this great webinar, just let us know. Or if you need any assistance, so Kevin, definitely reach out to me. We can try to help you figure out how you can get some access to insights, and we can work with you on that. And if there's any questions at all, you got about 10 more seconds to post it up, because again, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We're about 2 minutes over. But any questions, final, going once, going twice, and going 3 times. And again, next webinar will be on 10/24, and my guest will be Igel, and we'll be focusing on Windows 10. And thin is the new OS is going to be the theme of that. So again, I want to give a special thanks to ControlUp, my 2 buddies over there, Marcel and Barry, for taking time out of their day today to give us a great demo. And again, definitely connect with us on our next webinar, and hopefully you're finding these valuable. And if you're not, let me know, and we'll tweak it to make it a little more valuable. So I always love getting feedback. So I hope to see you on the next webinar. And Barry and Marcel, thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.